Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us as we talk all things faith, family, and fitness. A special thanks to Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency for their support of Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community one family at a time.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families, and I'm here with my husband, Merle. Hi, honey.
Oh, hello, Miss Linda. How are you doing today?
You were just blowing kisses across the table at me.
Well, but there's no video here, so nobody can see it.
Exactly. And it goes well with our show today. It's going to be a fun show.
That's right. Well, I was being flirtatious.
Oh.
I was being flirtatious.
Perfect.
And that has a lot to do with our show today. Actually, this is going to be kind of a fun show. But I think I probably have a little warning. If your teen is in the room while you're listening to this, they probably don't want you to hear this.
Well, maybe they'll purposely have them listen.
Well, maybe, but listen to it first, and if you like it and you like the message, then you can listen to it with your teen.
So yeah, if you didn't hear us, we're talking about teens and dating today. So we hope you'll tune in. But before we do, hon, we need to thank our sponsors. First of all, we want to thank Maxwell Construction. Maxwell Construction was founded in 1988 by John Maxwell, and since that time, Maxwell has grown and expanded to among the most recognized commercial construction companies in the tri-state. So what separates Maxwell apart from other competition is that they emphasize service-oriented construction to help meet the needs of the individuals and their customers.
All right, very good. So also I'd like to say thanks to Mansfield Insurance Agency. They built a reputation on caring, listening, and protecting their customers. So Mansfield Insurance Agency began in 1981 and has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So for all your insurance needs, call Mansfield Insurance Agency at 800-230-3927. That's 800-230-3927.
You know, hon, again, we just thank Maxwell and Mansfield for their just support of Rock Solid Radio and our community. And we also want to thank our sponsors out there who have partners who have come alongside Closing the Gap Challenge. We continue that until the end of this year, hon, and we're doing pretty good. But we definitely need your support out there. If you're listening and you like what we're talking about and think this is important about healthy families, we would love your support. You can go to our website, rocksolidfamilies.org, and push the donate button.
Yeah, we definitely would appreciate that. And, you know, I think as we talk about all the time, we want to deliver a message that's empowering to our community. And we have found the best way to empower our community is to empower and strengthen our families.
Yep.
Our families are simply the cell of the body, and when those cells are healthy, the body is healthy, and so we need to do everything we can to get our families healthy. So help us out with our message, and let's get out there and do the work.
Speaking of healthy, we teach fitness classes here 6 days a week, and the holidays are coming, hun, so we're going to have some changes in our schedule. So we're just
our eating schedule too,
which means we need to keep working out 6 days a week. But we hope that you will come and join us. We are going to be off a little bit for the holidays, so check out our Facebook page or rocksolidfamilies.org for our holiday schedule. We'll be closed several days between Christmas and New Year's and things like that. So.
Yeah. And also I want to, again, put a reminder out there that our Strong Dads class will be starting January 11th. That's on a Saturday. It'll run 8 Saturdays in a row. I'm starting to put the recruit flag up, so we're trying to get some dads out there. So if you feel like you just need a little bit of a nudge, some community of other dads, and just some guidance or encouragement, then I need you in that class. Yeah. So be looking. I'll be pumping more stuff out on that, but that'll be coming up in January.
So it's 45 minutes workout plus a 45-minute Bible study.
45 minutes of butt kicking workout.
So,
man.
yeah, if you're listening and you are a dad and you want to kind of be around other strong dads and kind of learn how to be a stronger dad in Christ, we would love to have you. Or if you're listening, you're a female, then maybe you have a husband that needs to be there. It's a great place.
You know, I mostly, most often, the ladies actually reach
You're
out
right.
and ask the questions for their husbands.
Yeah,
It's
and
funny,
then tell them.
Hey, I'm asking for my husband about this
Exactly.
strong dad thing. I like sign him up.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, well, let's talk a little bit first. We're talking about dating. Were you allowed to date? Give me your dating story, Linda. Or
Oh my gosh, you're catching me off
we
guard.
are going to air some dirty laundry.
You're catching me off guard. And actually, I would not recommend
What?
how my parents handled dating. I feel like they let me date too young. I was an 8th grader, hun, dating a senior in high school.
Ooh.
Actually, he was a junior in high school because when I was a freshman, I continued to date him. He was a senior. And I just feel like it put me in a very awkward position that I was not ready for emotionally and relationally. And my parents I was the oldest. I was the only female. And so I don't think they really gave it much thought. I think
Right.
I caught them off guard when I asked. And therefore, they really didn't have a plan in place.
Yeah. Uncharted water
Yes.
a little bit. But also, the guy was a nice guy. And so because of that, I think they just felt like, it's all good. And I think that's going to be a big part of our show today is that not whether I say yes or no to dating, but is my child, my teenager, are they prepared for what's out there? Because there's just going to be, things get really messy now in terms of emotions and commitments, and words start to matter and actions definitely matter. And so we just make an assumption. It's kind of like when you're 16, you can start driving. No, we know a lot of 16-year-olds that the maturity level is not there.
Now, hang on. You're not going any further.
No, we can go just fine. We're doing fine.
We need a little bit of your story about dating. When did you let us start
so
dating?
that is kind of interesting. So we did a little, it was almost more just kind of playing before I could drive. I mean, it wasn't, I had a couple crushes on girls before. I did have a buddy who could drive, and so I went on to a couple of dances and stuff like that, school dances. So it was kind of like your situation and your parents. I don't know that my parents really even put a lot of thought into it. And in some regards, I think that's a compliment in the sense that they must have trusted our judgment.
What were they thinking?
What were they thinking is the question there too. But I really, dating became a little bit more of an issue when I was able to drive. And also we had to pay for our dates. So it wasn't like, mom and dad gave us money and then a car.
Right.
We had to take care of everything. And so a lot of times I didn't have that resource to do that. So I also remember dating was not as much of a big deal because I liked the freedom to do a lot of other things. And so I think I always joked with you, you were the first girl that I ever dated for longer than 6 months.
Yeah, when I got past 6 months, man, I was in. I knew we were getting married.
Yeah, I just
never had any
didn't like,
long-lasting girlfriend.
Being tied down or whatever.
Yeah.
I enjoyed just doing my thing. So but I'll back up and say I don't remember a lot of conversations about dating.
Yeah, me either.
And I was, my older sister, she did date young, and there were a lot of emotional challenges that came from that.
Yep.
And we all got to witness that as her younger siblings. And so probably in hindsight, if my parents had to do that over again, they would have approached it a little differently.
Yeah, you speaking of crushes, hon, you think about all these little elementary school kids coming home and they're going with, they got a crush on so and so and they asked them out. I'm like, where are you going? You're in 5th grade. You're in 4th grade. Like, what the heck? And so we just want to talk to parents today and have a real conversation about having some of these things decided on and conversations about before the day comes where they're asking if they could go out or so-and-so asked them out. So we just kind of want to really talk about that today.
So let's talk a little bit because you and I, like it or not, are back in the dark ages now. And so the trends have actually started to change. And I think we probably need to highlight some of these changes because it does change how we would give advice and with our own kids, and how we're going to give advice out to our
I
parents.
thought you were going to talk about how we're back into the teenage years again. We were out of it for a while, so we really are in 2 seasons of parenting here, where we parented
Right.
10, 15 years ago, and it was different, even for our older 2 boys, than it is for the other 3 that we
and let's
adopted.
be straight up, and I hope our olders are listening to this at some point in time. They did not really date.
Oh, did you really have to put that out there?
No, they didn't. I think they were just weird or awkward or no. Well, the research is going to show that what they did was very normal and
Yes.
very healthy.
And it did not come back to hurt them. No.
Do any permanent
Damage.
lasting damage.
I don't know. We should ask their wives.
Yeah, but we did used to tease because I think, you and I always enjoyed other people and the whole, I think sometimes parents get a bigger kick out of their kids going on their first date and asking questions like, are they nice? What do they like to do? And all these kind of things. And we would kind of probe those questions, and our older boys would look at us like, just mind your own business. I'm not even getting involved in that stuff. And so
I think we were more interested in them dating than they were.
yeah, especially the longer it went before they dated, we started to question like, come on, dudes, come on, let's get out there, let's get a date.
You do like girls, right?
Right.
Just making sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's been a trend, and the trend is that in the last 30 or 40 years, that teenagers are actually dating less than they did back in 30 years ago. There are different thoughts for maybe why that is. One is the technology. Just because they might be dating less, that doesn't mean their interaction is less.
Right.
There's so much more flirting and just meeting online, whether it's in forums or Facebook or whatever. That is a major player.
You think
in
about
the
this,
dating
hon.
process.
When you and I were dating, we actually had to use this thing called a phone, and it was
And I
attached to a
hated
wall. It was a landline. I mean, we didn't even have cell
So you
phones.
had to talk
we didn't
in
have
front of your parents and the
cordless
rest of the
phones.
family.
Yeah, so you didn't do that very often and very long. You definitely tried to get together in person, and there wasn't this thing called the internet and emails. And so, yeah, it was if I wanted to see you, and you lived an hour away, and when we started dating in college, and so it was, I want to see you, and I don't want to, you didn't like talking on the phone.
Right.
So it was a matter of, if I wanted to have conversation, I had to get together with you.
Yeah, and so the trend is less actual physical dating. The desire for interaction seems to be as strong or about equal, but again, it just is starting to look a little differently. Also, I think there's that question like, well, is it okay for kids to date? And I think that the research out there was a study that was done at the University of Georgia, and they followed they did this study for about 7 years, and basically found that those who dated in their teens and those who didn't date in their teens really came out with about the same social skills, the
Right.
same adjustability in terms of how well they interacted with people. So it was kind of a wash. Like there's no major benefit or
Right.
detriment whether you date early or
And
not.
really, I don't think it's a matter of dating or not. It's socialization. So if
Yeah.
they're going to the dances, if they're going out to the movies with friends, if they're going to ball games, and they're having those interactions, it doesn't have to be on a one-on-one date. We see a lot of trends where it's group dates, where a group of guys meet at the movies and a group of girls meet at the movies. And so that's socialization, and that's important. So we don't want your kids to be hiding under a rock and closed off in their room. And the problem, hun, is that they're doing that now because they have technology.
Right.
And they are in their room. They got their door closed, and they are sending pictures. They are sending, words and having conversations that are really inappropriate. And so this whole world of sexting has occurred that is really replacing a lot of face-to-face dating. And for them, they're getting that same romantic experience, they think. But it's a very distorted one. It's a very dangerous one. We're flirting with some disaster here if, obviously, they replace those face-to-face relationships with the internet.
Yeah, we have kids now that begin dating online, and within 2 or 3 days they break up online, and they never actually physically saw each other. And I mean, that's funny, but it's not. That we see that with our own kids, right? In terms of just how they interact with people, and it's kind of like this little this fire burst, and then boom, it goes out.
Honey, our little guy asked a girl to go with them the other day, and less than
Did that break up already?
Yeah, less than 24 hours.
I didn't get that news. So they're already broke up.
Yeah, less than 24 hours. And so, it's one of those things where here's mom and dad, something we do want to say. Please don't fuel it. Don't encourage it. If they're in 4th grade and they talk about a girl, be really careful, because you don't want to perpetuate something that they're not interested in or they're not ready for, and you're the one pushing it. That's really important.
I've shared this story before, and it may seem a little bit off from what we're talking about, but it really goes to what the heart of this discussion is going to be about today. Years ago, when I was working in the elementary school, I had a little boy who came in, and he was probably about 2nd grade or so, and he wore this big, bright pink shirt. And on this shirt it says, "Tough guys wear pink."
I remember this.
Yeah, and so it was, that's fine, that's cool. And so he's wearing this pink shirt, and he is walking through the building, and he starts to get made fun of. Some people are teasing him, and before you know it, he's in my office, and he's crying. And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Everyone's making fun of my shirt. And I'm like, "Well, why did you wear that shirt?" And he goes, "Because my mom thought it would be fun." And the moral of the story here is we don't do things or advocate for things for our kids unless we know they have the tools to deal with them.
Right.
That was a very innocent thing that the parent did.
That was funny, yeah.
Yeah, but that little guy, being in 2nd grade, did not have the tools and the skills to be able to handle what was going to happen, being made fun of and teased and so on. And so that is a no-no on the parents' part. They put their kid in a position that their kid wasn't ready to handle.
Yep.
That's a lot of what we're going to talk about today with the teen dating. Just because everybody's doing it, we need to look at our individual kids and say, okay, what's involved?
Yep.
So let's break this down a bit. Let's maybe get into a little bit of our advice mode, okay?
Yeah.
So first off, dating or not dating, either one, they're normal, okay? So whether they is really more of a personality and desire.
So don't push them into something they're not ready for.
Right.
But if they are ready for, though, hon, we want to talk about what do we do with that.
Right. So that goes down to the next level of deal, and that is, okay, let's look at the tools that our kids need if they're going to start this, because this is a different level of relationship. This is not just hanging out with your buddies and teasing each other. Now we have emotions that start to get involved with this.
Throwing words around like "I love you" and "this is forever," and it's really devastating when. And I'll take my own daughter, our own daughter, for example. You throw those words around to her, she's going to take them seriously. And if that boy is just doing that to, get in bed with her or whatever that is, I mean, that's going to be devastating to her when it's no longer the truth in his eyes. Yeah.
Well, and, one of our sons was, for a very short time, dating a girl. I would even kind of not call it dating, but they were in discussion, and he was starting to get kind of excited about this. But she started to discover he doesn't communicate well at all. He gives one-word answers. He doesn't go very deep. And again, at the time he was like 14 or 15 years old, and so he didn't have the skill to perpetuate a relationship.
She got frustrated.
Yeah, she got frustrated. She's like, "Yeah, you're done, dude. I don't care whether you're cute or not." And so again, he didn't have the skill, and that's part of why we do date, to see where we are lacking and what we need to work on. But that was an exposure there.
Yeah. Speaking of exposure, hon, our daughter just had to do this for digital citizenship. She had to teach on sexting and the dangers of sexting. I was so proud of her because that's a very awkward conversation to have. And so she did a lot of research, her and some girls, and she did this activity with them. And I think the kids really got it. She gave everybody a little piece of tape, and around their fingers. And then for a couple minutes, they had to go around and just touch everything. They touched each other, they, like their shirts, they touched the desk, they touched the ground, they touched everything. And then they came back and they kind of observed that their tape, that was clear tape to start with, was very dirty. And it was full of fuzz and dirt and crumbs and things like that. Yuck. Yeah. It was yuck. And so her point was two things. One is that each time we send inappropriate pictures or we have these sexting conversations or online, so we're doing this online dating thing and we expose ourselves to this yuck, it sticks. Yeah. It sticks to us.
Very difficult to make that tape clean again, isn't it?
Very difficult to make it clean. And what they found was that the tape no longer was sticky. And so her point to her class is that it's really hard to have relationships that stick down the road if that's how you've exposed yourself in the dating realm. If it's been this inappropriate stuff, if there's been sexting going on and inappropriate talk and pictures and actions and things like that. And so her class, she said, Mom, we were the only ones that got an ovation for that. They were clapping. Like, they get it.
Yeah.
I think they got it, and I think it's really important. You might even want to do this, Mom and Dad, as a with your teen, to talk about that it really prevents you from having healthy relationships down the road if you've exposed yourself and dirtied the waters in your head and your mind and your heart with that.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point too with the whole tape analogy. The dirtier that tape gets, I will also say, it loses its stickiness. It's less attractive.
Yeah.
It's less attractive, you know, and we see the more clutter that we get in our life, it's just not attractive to other people who we might be attracted to. They're like, too much stuff going on there.
And, and I had a student in my ministry years ago who dated every single person in the ministry. He was a little young guy, and he was a flirt, and all the girls liked him. And so he would go with this girl, and then he'd break up and go with this girl and go with this girl. And after a long time, he got a reputation as kind of being a player. And it wasn't really somebody that the girls were attracted to anymore because he kind of had come off with a different, reputation that, and we talk about that with our kids. Like, your reputation is important. It's something that you want to protect and you want to value, and you don't want to throw it around and let anybody else have their willy-nilly, way with.
Yeah. So working on the skills, recognizing the maturity level of your kid is very important, okay? This next question here, this next area that we're going to cover is, who should your teen date if they are going to date? If the decision is made and you've kind of released them to do that, who are they going to date? And I'm just going to tell you, this may sound very biased or prejudiced, but this is a big deal.
It is.
And I am going to watch who my kids date.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be part of that selection process as a parent.
Yeah.
And the idea that I say, well, I just let my kid, whoever they like or have fun with. No, because of all of the other things that can go with this.
Sure.
The hurt and the pain. And we are talking in some cases life-changing hurt and pain.
Absolutely. And we do that with our kids' friends. Obviously we can't pick our kids' friends, but we do want to influence what kind of friends they have and who they are hanging around. Yeah. And so, Proverbs 10:9 says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his way crooked will be found out. So, a man or a woman of integrity is not only to be praised, but to be prayed for and sought after for, a potential spouse. You were a potential, hon.
Whoa, I was just a potential.
Well, when I was in freshman in college, you were just potential at that time.
Yes. Well, I think the idea that the very first thing that we want to teach our kids is, and this is hard because there's a physical attraction, and so we're looking for the cute girl or for the cute guy, and so I'm not trying to diminish that, but what I am saying is you really have to teach your kids how to recognize what integrity really is.
Right.
Not just in everybody. I want our kids to recognize when somebody's telling them lies, when somebody's being nasty to them, when somebody's words don't match. I want our kids, whether they're dating them or not, to catch those kind of people. And because then they caution the interaction with those people.
Right.
For even greater reasons, I want them to recognize whether they see integrity in a person they might date.
Sure. And I have a client who was in a very unhealthy relationship. and got pregnant, had a child with this person. And the problem was that she didn't look at that long term when she started dating him.
Right.
He was fun, he was good looking, and what she didn't look at is the beauty underneath him. Was it there? He had children by other women. None of them he married. He came from an abusive home and was very abusive and strong toward women. And so she kind of like lowered her standards and allowed herself to date somebody she knew probably wasn't the best healthy thing for her. And all of a sudden now she has a child.
Yeah.
And so she's connected to this person for the rest of her life. And so that's really hard. You want to help your kids to understand the beauty is not just on the surface and how they dress and what their hair looks like, but on the inside. Are they a person that you would want to be around? The person that's going to lift you up, make you better, and not make you worse.
Yeah. So the next part of that is the idea, and here's where I think our parents fell short. And I think because maybe they didn't think there was much of a cost to it back in those days. I think there was a greater level of trust. But before they date, you better talk with them. You better talk with your kids. The assumption, and that's what I'm getting to here, there was an assumption that things would be okay or that the person was okay.
Or we knew.
And that motives were good and all that. There was an assumption. And so having the talk with your kids, and not just about the birds and the bees. That's definitely something we want to educate our kids on. But the idea of having the talk about what do you expect? Giving your daughter or your son a description of, well, here's what a good date is, and here's what a bad date is.
Right.
Here's how he should treat you.
Right.
Here's what she should say or she should do. All of these things are things that if you make the assumption, you run a large risk of your kid being in an awkward position.
Yeah. I recently had a conversation with our daughter about first base, second base, third base, home run. Wait,
she doesn't even play baseball. What are you talking about?
She had heard that from friends, but didn't understand what that meant. And I felt like that was a really important conversation. And I'm really glad she felt safe and comfortable enough to come and talk to me about it. But I want to do that to her, because what if she had not heard about it? It would have been important to kind of talk about some of that lingo and talk. For instance, sexting, did she even know what that was before it was brought up at digital citizenship? It's really awkward if you're a teenager and don't know what some of those things are, but don't assume they do.
Yeah. It's very easy, and I think you and I do this with our kids. Do they like sports? Do they like music? What kind of stuff? And we get into that. And something that is oftentimes assumed is whether they will have an equal understanding of faith. Are they a Christian? Yeah. You and I see in our work all the time that if we get a relationship or a marriage where the faith is not equal, it's not yoked together, there's problems. And so early on, again, you and I joked, our parents wanted us to date Catholic, right? And I think that's one reason why I got to date you. And again, your parents and parents, I don't want you to shy away from that, because it helps get a starting foundation of what this person, what they were introduced to when they were being raised.
Not that they're maybe following along with that completely, but at least you have a baseline to talk with, value supposedly that you share. And if you don't, if their words and their actions don't match up with what they say they believe, then that gives you a good opportunity for conversation. But Hun, I've had this a lot. I've had teenagers who have been in my office who think they're out to save their boyfriend or girlfriend. Yeah. Like they're the Christian and their date is not. And so in their mind, God sent me to this person to save them, to bring them to Christ. And that's a really dangerous line to dance, because sometimes your heart gets sucked in and then you lose focus and perspective of, okay, this is not my job. This is the Lord's job. I'm not saying you don't be friends with them, but to be romantically involved with somebody when you are not equally yoked is a very dangerous dance to do.
It's one thing to rescue an abandoned puppy, but when we are a young person trying to rescue another young person, there's a lot of guidance that needs to take place with that. And again, we're not saying that person doesn't need help, but your teenager may not have the skills,
the maturity
to be the person to provide that help.
Yeah,
maybe they could be part of the team, but they then and themselves
really
are not
hard
there
to
to
separate.
rescue.
And more than not, I've found that it pulls the teen away from her faith or his faith, because that person starts to talk sweet nothings into their ear and starts to put doubt in their mind of why you do what you do, and this is ridiculous. And all of a sudden they're like, you're right, it's ridiculous, because they're trying to find that love that they so desperately want. So
I think this is a great time to remind both the boys and the girls about what it is to be respected. There's an assumption there about what respect is, and I'm just going to call it out. Most of the time, the guys are not taught or expected to be as respectable as the girls need to be. And so, as a dad, I make that part of my conversation, and I would not tolerate if one of our boys was disrespectful to a girl, even at this young age that they are right now. That's going to be a conversation. Because the girl has so much more involved in this in terms of her emotional working and wiring. And so we see that if parents do allow for this kind of interaction and dating to take place earlier, and it starts going bad, there's a lot of harm that can take place.
And we used to do a mom-daughter class. And in this class, we were talking about dating and just self-worth, where they find their self-worth. And we compared it to an old Ford truck. If you allow men, guys, boys, to treat you like an old Ford truck, you rode hard, you're put away wet, you're just, and you dress like an old Ford truck, that you're not going to get respected. You're not going to get what you deserve. And so I want these late girls to raise the bar of expectation in a date and a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other part, the last major part of this is the idea that, we want our kids to experience life. We want them to grow up. They're going to get bumps and bruises. We're not there to put them in bubble wrap. In fact, you and I talked very much against that. We want to make sure, though, that if they're going to go out in the jungle, they got the tools. That they're able to take care of themselves.
And that you still are the parent.
Yes. And being still the parent, this is not, I don't trust my kid, but we're working value systems. We're making sure that their judgment is good. And so, mom and dad, you need to meet their date. And if they're not willing to bring this date around the house, then you do not need to support this.
That's a red flag.
You need to meet them. That person should be strong enough to be able to come around you and show you how they treat your daughter or son, how they interact with the family. You want to know about their family background, just because you need to get a good picture. And if the young teens here are not willing to do that, then, and for you and I, they don't have our support. Okay, because we are part of this family, and they need to let us in on that.
We've talked about age of dating. We recommend no younger than 16. We've kind of let that known on all 5 of our children that 16. So really right up front, they kind of know if somebody asks them out before that, I can't. I'm not allowed to date till I'm 16.
That doesn't mean they can't be flirting and talking to other kids at school. I mean, we know that stuff's going to happen.
Or they go with, but they're not going to meet them at the movies. They're not having them over for a party. The age of dating for our rule, it doesn't even mean it has to start at 16 if they're not mature and ready and have the tools. You need to know where they're going and what they're doing. It needs to be run by you. Make sure, they know when is the acceptable time. Our daughter, who's 14, God love her, she's already asking what time she'll be allowed to stay out. Like, you do realize we got 2 years here, but in her mind, she wants to be ready.
And I'll back that up. We have 2 years, if all things, if we think that she has the skills and maturity to do it. Okay, so 16 is when we start to have the conversation. So,
Hun, we really want to talk about this whole technology piece, because we are seeing a lot of kids do some online dating and some really sexting and kind of flirting back and forth on the phones. And mom and dad, we're just going to tell you, we feel it's super important that you know all of your kids' passwords. And in our home, the phones sleep in our room.
Yeah.
They sleep in our room not only for our kids, but
Without the kid.
Without the
Right
kid,
there.
yes, not the kid. Oh my goodness, that would be awful. But also our kids' friends. When we have sleepovers and stuff with guys and girls, and we have the phones. When we go to bed, all the phones go to bed because I'm just going to tell you, nothing happens good after midnight, and that's when a lot of inappropriate stuff. This is when they're Snapchatting the guys, or when they're setting up a little rendezvous in the middle of the night. I mean, you didn't let your door and windows open and let strangers come into your home with your little ones. Why are we doing that with our phones? So we really encourage that.
Well,
you take
and again, not only do we know the passwords, we actually do go through and read their messaging through the day.
And we've told them that.
And they know that. We'll do that right in front of them. And that's not to be sneaky. That's not to try to get dirt on them. We are bringing them up and trying to build their character. And if there are certain things that are not healthy, that are not going to produce good fruit and results, then we still have the responsibility to say, no, that kind of garbage that you just said in that text message is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Right?
And this is level of trust. And so if trust is there and we're not having any issues, then we back off on that. But if we have questions, or if there's things aren't aligning and matching up your words and your actions, we have the right. And they know that. So.
Yeah. Okay, so that's very good stuff. I think as we try to wrap things up a little bit, we're really not taking a stand that your kids should date or should not date. I think it is very much a family decision. But I think that when we let our kids drive, it just opens up a whole new can of adventure, but also risk.
Right.
And that's what dating does. And so I don't really want the world to dictate exactly how we're going to do that. I don't need the government to give me a dating rule, okay? But Mom and Dad, I do need you. Yeah, I do need you to do this. And so I want you to take the time to talk about the what ifs. Well, what if this goes wrong? What if this happens? Your kids need to start thinking this way. My dad used to always say, if you're going to play big boy games, you got to be ready to pay big boy prices. And that's the deal here. When we're starting to get into this area, whether it's driving cars or dating or anything like that, the cost is immensely different than what they were when we were, playing doctor and nurse and we were 3 years old.
And I'm just going to say real quick, because there is a lot of this trend going on of sleepovers where the boyfriend, the girlfriend either stays the night, goes on vacation and stays in a room, or lives with. I'm just telling you, you are down a slippery slope if you kind of compromise what you say is important and what you value as a family. So please don't put your child at risk in that and just really kind of blur the lines there. So, set some boundaries now. Let them know the expectations and the rules of your family before the day comes. It's a really easy way to talk to them when they're in 4th and 5th grade instead of junior and senior high.
Yeah.
So.
And also, this is, as we kind of close it out here, the idea that you do want to hear your kids talk and thoughts on this. If we go, this is a great time to build a strong relationship from parent to teen. If we have a very matter of fact, no, it's stupid, you're not going to do it, I don't want to hear about it, and then we shut our eyes to the idea, there's a very good chance that we're going to get other behind the scenes activity going.
Right.
And so
sneaking behind your back.
The sneaky part is actually going to cause probably more problems. And so this is a time where we start talking, making sure that we have the door open to relationship, and just encouraging their growth and their own skills. Hey, let's get you good and strong and ready to know what you're going to deal with. You wouldn't just give a 15-year-old a set of car keys that have never driven before and say, go drive.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, so you're going to take the time to be involved in the learning process. Okay, we need to wrap it up. So we want to say thank you to Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance for their support. We also want to thank all of those listeners out there that continue to cheer us on and encourage our work. And we'd like to come right back and encourage you guys out there in what you're doing out on the front lines of parenting and marriages. And so if you have any questions or want to get in touch with us, you can reach us at rocksolidfamilies.org. You can go to our webpage there, and there's a little email connect area that you can get us, or you can call us at 1-812-576-7625. Linda, you need to sign us off.
Yeah, so for my husband Merle and I, we just want to thank you so much as we approach the holidays. We pray for you and your family, our listeners, our readers, our supporters, our clients. We just pray for you daily, and we pray that God would just enrich your lives and knock your socks off with blessings. So for Merle and I, just have a beautiful day, and God bless. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard on today's show, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency. If you have questions you'd like answered on our show, or you want to chime in on something you heard, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merle and I, thanks for tuning in to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time.